Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast, Mayday, what's your location? Get the hell out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, baby. Water in that 2.5 inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5 inch line. To the rope, to the rope. 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I'm Paul, your host, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Denis. He's my cousin. He's also a retired fire chief like me from Nova Scotia, and together we call ourselves the Waldorf and Statler Show from the Muppets. Hello, Denis. How are you today?
Otherwise known as living the life.
Living the life. And I apologize for my sound right away because my main microphone's not working.
Yeah. No, you didn't pay your rent, Paul. That's the problem.
That's what it was. Yep. On a pension, you know.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. Anyway, it's a lovely day here in Nova Scotia. No fog. Lots of black flies. You go out and mow the lawn. You want to make sure that your pants are tucked into your socks and you're wearing a bug shirt and it's tucked into your gloves, and it's just you're mowing along and there's black clouds of black flies coming up and they're all hungry little guys. Like, what do you eat when I'm not around? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, we just had like a multi-day huge rainstorm, which we really needed it. It really filled up a lot of reservoirs and stuff. $1 billion rain, they're saying, because the farmers had just got all their seeding in, and then we got a big rain.
Good timing.
We'll be getting mosquitoes soon.
Good timing.
Good timing. Yep, we needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Usually we cover a few current events here. So together we put our heads together and came up with some. Recently, in the last month or so, there's been at least 2 or more line of duty deaths, one in Boston and one in Maine. Boston fell out of a 3rd floor balcony, I believe, in a residential fire. And in Maine, it was a wood mill products place, and they had an explosion, and the silo, the collection silo, actually flew in the air 50 feet or so. And anyway, one firefighter was killed and several others were injured. Waiting for more information on those.
We should do a podcast about silo explosions, Paul.
Yeah, we've done a few, and I'm in contact actually with our friend Chris Clooney with the Dust Safety Science Institute, yeah. And he's busy doing a bunch of dust stuff right now, but he wants to join us and do some silo ones. And I just found some more silo explosion in the historic files.
So we don't know the details on the one in Maine yet, But
no,
it was basically a dust explosion in a silo. So that pretty common. Gross, from looking from a distance, that's kind of a common story that we've seen a number of times. So
anxious to see what the investigation reveals.
Something different, something the same, we don't know.
It's been a hot week or two for electric vehicles. In the last week, there's been 3 large EV fleet fires. So not one EV, but fleets of EVs around the world. There was damaging over 70 vehicles and injuring numerous people. A showroom in India just yesterday caught fire and 20 people were injured. About 3 or 4 days ago, 33 entry level, so sort of bottom end Chinese EVs they were just unloaded from a ship in a port in France, and they caught fire overnight sitting in the parking lot on the dock, and they all burned. And then about a month ago, 100 EVs burnt in St. Louis, Missouri, apparently. I haven't found the details on that story. I just stumbled across it here today. So bad day for EVs, or bad month.
Yeah, but the thing that I find, we got EV fires, and like they say, it's not the fact that cars catch fire. It's the fact that EV fires are just a different animal, right? They're so much more intense. They're much harder to control. But the thing I find from these stories, if you watch them, they say, and especially when you hear interviews from civilians, large clouds of white smoke. All you can see with these large clouds of white smoke. And we know from just a recent incident where firefighters were exposed that large clouds of white smoke from EV fires are deadly. Mm-hmm. And you got to consider that a lot of these facilities where these EV fires are happening are not out in the boonies. They're in populated areas. So potentially a lot of people in the public exposed to deleterious effects from these fires.
Yeah,
And I don't even know if they would know that.
the, the,
Like
the,
who's checking on that?
the vapor clouds are almost worse than the fire, really, to
It's a
the public
hazmat
for
incident.
sure. It's a
You need to.
big hazmat. Yep.
I'm waiting for the the TDG manual or the North American.
Emergency
Oh,
response guide.
thank you. My tongue is not working today. That response guide to have setback distances for EV fires. Quarter mile
They're
clearance or whatever. It's got to come.
They're actually working on potentially a new classification for lithium-ion batteries, its own dangerous goods class number 10. So it's not in miscellaneous; it'll have its own class. And
Yeah.
our friend over at Stash D Training is talking about that. So that might be coming, and then you would add those distances and stuff. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
I don't know when the next update to the NA.
I don't know. That was
is coming.
2024, I think. Last
Yeah,
one.
there was
So
one fairly
another
recently.
year.
So
Yeah.
Anyway,
Fire truck and a fire station damaged by a fire recently, last week. I think it was in New York State.
it was a write-off.
Suspected to be ignited by a thermal runaway in a tablet-type device, no brand names here, in the officer's seating area. So that's where they determined the fire started, was near the officer's seat in the cab of the truck, and they're suspecting the tablet that may have overheated. The problem with those tablets, of course, is they're always plugged in, they're always charging when you're in the station, and if they get a bit of damage because you're using them for other stuff, or they get bumped or wet, or you never know, can happen.
But also, one needs to consider that these tablets are designed to cool, and lots of times there's ventilation holes on them and areas where you're supposed to be, letting air circulate to cool them. If you throw them on a seat, which is soft, or you put them in an area where there's the air access to these cooling ports is not as it's designed to be on a nice level flat surface, you could be precipitating a problem. And maybe if you're gonna do that, you should have a nice aluminum plate mounted in the cab that you sit this thing on top of when it's being charged, and to dissipate some of the heat.
Yeah,
just an idea.
we don't know the details, but the case or something around the case might have prevented cooling. Yep.
Possibility.
We used to have problems with them getting too hot in the sunshine in our Chiefs truck and stuff, and they would overheat and shut down, or getting too cold and they would shut down. So we used to have to bring them in every night when we parked the Chief truck at home, or if they were sitting outside. A lot of agencies. I was up teaching a course in northern Alberta this week, and their peace officer vehicles actually had a sign on the back of the peace officer vehicle saying engine is running all the time while on duty, and really it's to keep the air conditioning going for all the electronics in the car. So these things happen. Chicago, Illinois, placed probably one of the largest ever orders of fire apparatus in North America. They ordered 120 engines, trucks, and ambulances from Emergency One and Wheeled Coach. It's a huge order. They need new trucks for sure. But that's it's a really big order. I actually was involved in some really big orders back in the early 2000s. Houston ordered, I don't know, 50 trucks or something from us, and I spent weeks there writing specs and working with the Houston people and I see Houston actually just ordered another 60 units from E1 over the next 3 years. So we're starting to see these big replacement programs catching up to the COVID times where we didn't order stuff. And
E1, of course, is expanding their aerial plant too, right?
Right. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what they did there, because they had moved the aerial plant about 10, 12 years ago from the aerial plant, which was a rented building, to the crash truck plant. Then I think it looked like from the videos I saw, it's in that same area.
Yeah. But even that new building, or new at the time, when I was there, I was surprised that there was as little space as there was. I thought, they needed more. It was obvious then.
That's good. Speaking of E1, Dan Peters, who is a very well-respected, long-time fire apparatus and equipment industry executive, a year older than I am, former president of Emergency Rescue Technologies. He was a president of Emergency One in the mid teens of 2016, 15, somewhere in there. He was the vice president of sales for Pierce. He was the president of Akron Brass. Recently passed away a week or two ago from his home. I'm not sure what happened, but so a lot of the fire service industry mourning the loss of Dan Peters. He was very engaged, very personable, really worked for the industry, was a great guy.
Yeah, a lot of knowledge lost there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, into our episode. First of all, a bit of a disclaimer. The commentary is based on the information that's available to us at the time of recording and the experience of the presenters. That's Denny and I. This is done to the best of our ability, and listeners should be cautioned that they may not agree with us. The information in this episode is taken from the NIOSH Firefighter Fatality Intervention Program report in 2016. Oh, I didn't put the number down, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's -12.
-12. Thank you very much. And also from Kurt Verone's Fire Law blog. We have a little comment on that near the end. On June 16th, 63-year-old male career firefighter and triathlete Clifford Rigsby died after being critically injured during surf rescue training exercise. So this is a training exercise, LODD. I actually want to make a presentation on all the training exercise LODDs because unfortunately there's quite a few of them. And in my mind, training shouldn't result in a line of duty death, but it's very unfortunate. I realize that very few of our listeners have surf rescue situations, but I found that there was many parallels from this tragic incident with any other water rescue situation, of which we have covered several in the podcast, and they keep happening. So I thought it was a good one for us to cover. In Alberta here, we've had lots of swift water going on. The rivers are all flooding because we had a rapid heat up and snowpack melt and now a big rain. And so all of our responders here in Western Canada are dealing with. In fact, I just was listening to a talk show in Saskatoon, and they were warning people to stay away from the river because the Gardner Dam, Diefenbaker Dam, they're going to release a whole bunch of water. So, our responders are dealing with these high water conditions. So
there's another reason why you need to pay attention to some of the lessons in this particular episode. And even though we don't all do surf rescue, we've done a number of podcasts on water rescue training incidents, and on real water rescues and where deaths have occurred. And I don't think any of them did not have a lawsuit attached to them eventually. And particularly if you kill a firefighter or a firefighter dies in a training incident, highly likely you're going to be charged under your occupational health and safety. And I would expect a lawsuit coming out of it also. And that's certainly the case in this particular episode.
Yeah, and we are seeing a growing trend in civil lawsuits against municipalities and their staff, such as we saw in, I think, Ohio, the $31 million award and the $6 million award in New Jersey just a few weeks ago. And so I was talking to I was teaching the ICS Incident Command System Operations Section Chief course this week in Northern Alberta, and I did point out to all those potential operations section chiefs that they need to be very careful with the safety of their personnel because we are seeing a lot more scrutiny to the decisions we make or lack thereof. So good things to know about. So that's why we do the podcast, right? This has been a passion of mine. I was thinking about that this morning. We're getting close to episode 100 here. And I used to take my dad's fire engineering magazines, and they would have an article or two on big fires and what they did. And I used to build my little Lego trucks, and I would set them all up just like the scene was, and I would reenact it on the carpet. No, I didn't light anything on fire, Denis. Just so I've always been interested in reviewing what happens at incidents. So here we are.
Good to know, Paul.
Yeah. Fire department. The fire department in this incident is a career fire department. It's Honolulu, consisting of 1,150 members that provide fire rescue protection as well as surf rescue. They have 43 fire stations located strategically throughout the city and county, and they serve a population of approximately 1.1 million in a geographic area of about 620 square miles. Oh, I didn't put kilometers in there. Oops.
Bad on you. That's around 1,000.
Yeah, 1,000 square kilometers. The fire stations have 43 fire engines, 16 aerial ladder trucks, 2 heavy rescue trucks with boats and scuba dive team members, so self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, 2 hazardous material trucks, 2 helicopters, and 6 tankers or water trucks, basically, for civilians would call them.
Tankers with wheels, not wings.
Tankers with wheels. We're getting quite a few non-firefighter listeners, so I've been putting a little more explanation in some of this stuff for people because I get these emails and messages from people I know going, "What does this mean? What does this mean?" Anyway, the fire
Well,
department
terminology
operates.
is different too. I mean, across the
Yeah,
world. So,
for
I
sure.
mean,
Yeah.
if somebody said, he hauled out the branch and squirted the truck, you'd go, "What?"
What's a
In North,
branch? Yeah.
yeah, in North America, but in Britain it make perfect sense,
Yeah.
or Australia.
Fire department operates. Did you know that the insignia in the UK for fire officers, rather than being bugles like in North America, it's impellers, pump impellers, a little graphics of a inside of a pump that makes the water pressure. It's just fascinating.
News to me.
There you go. I taught you something today. Woohoo!
Oh,
The
just today.
department's
Okay, good.
the department operates 11 water rescue crafts or for surf rescue. These are mounted on trailers and housed at 11 firefighter stations located throughout the island with 370 firefighters trained to operate them. These are jet skis, basically, the water rescue craft. They're like jet skis on steroids.
Yeah.
Maybe they're Bombardier. They might even be Canadian made. Who knows? Anyway,
I don't think so, but number.
BRP, Bombardier Motorsports or whatever it's called. Let's see. There's 22 battalion chiefs, 4 assistant chiefs, 1 deputy fire chief, and a fire chief. The department has a safety division, which consists of battalion chief, occupational health and safety office, 2 fire captains, and 1 safety specialist and a civilian. The training site where this happened was a popular surfing area located 600 to 700 feet out from the shoreline, again about 1,000 meters, and approximately 293 feet down from the beach and out of line of sight from the engine and ladder company staging area and the rescue watercraft launch area. So this will be a problem come up later in the recommendations, is they were out of line of sight from the shore-based command.
Like 300 meters.
300 meters, absolutely.
Yeah.
The training site was a popular surfing area located 600 to 700 feet out from the shoreline and approximately 3,200 feet down the beach and out of the line of sight from the engine and ladder company staging area and the rescue watercraft launch area. So this becomes important later because they were not in line of sight of the command or safety officer, which we've had in other incidents on water where they're operating out of line of sight and therefore command wasn't aware of what they were doing.
So basically, the guy operating the rescue craft and the guy on the sled who got killed, they're all by themselves, essentially. There was nobody in support, nobody observing. They were just out there doing their practice unobserved by themselves. That's what he's saying. Anyway, training and experience. The state of Hawaii does not have requirements for firefighter training. However, the department, Honolulu in this case, in the incident is accredited by the Commission on Fire Accreditation International, CAFI for you guys who would all know CFAI. The department has a comprehensive fire academy and does have minimum training requirements for their firefighters. They consist of International Fire Service Accreditation Congress, IFSAC. I don't know that I've ever said the whole name any more than 3 times, but anyway, IFSAC certification for Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2, so that's NFPA 1001. Hazardous materials awareness level and hazardous materials operations level. And they have additional academy training that includes emergency medical technician, basic, and water rescue training, which is a 48-hour course. Remember, Honolulu is on an island, right? So basically the fire department is the major emergency response organization probably in that area, and has basically needs to be a full service department. So the victim, who's firefighter Clifford Rigsby, was 63 years old. And at the time of the incident, he had more than 21 years experience as a professional firefighter. So he joined in his 40s. with this particular department in Honolulu. He had completed the department's required training, which included the following: firefighter 1, firefighter 2, emergency medical technician B level on the national. He was on the National Registry, and he had completed his certification in rescue watercraft / surf rescue training, which is what they were doing their annual research for in this case, or practicums, anyways. So the fire department in this incident had an extensive SOP that covered surface water rescue, including the training, operation, and use of the rescue watercraft. Additionally, the department required all instructors for the RWC Rescue Watercraft Program to undergo extensive operator training and to have completed a water agility, physical agility course that consists of, and listen to this, I was exhausted reading it. Anyways, a 1,000-yard run followed by a 1,000-yard swim. So that's 300 meters for us metric folks. Completed in less than 25 minutes. And then a 400-yard paddleboard in less than 4 minutes. Man, that's moving. A 100-yard run followed by a 100-yard swim, and then another 100-yard run, all done in less than 3 minutes. An 80-hour rescue watercraft instructor's course, the department's water safety program, and must possess a current certification card. So obviously there's research. And a department's operator training program for towing familiarization, one time only. So they might have to go to retrieve a boat that's lost power. So there's ways to do that properly, and there's ways to do it wrongly. So anyways, fire department personnel who operated rescue watercraft in emergency response incidents then had to also do an initial 56-hour rescue watercraft, RWC, field operators program training course, and then a minimum of 10 hours quarterly training for rescue watercraft proficiency, which brings us pretty much to the point of this training exercise. So that's a lot of skills in how to operate these craft and do water rescue. So these guys, this wasn't their first rodeo.
No, they're doing it. Like this, the training is there, the response is there. A little bit different than that Montreal incident we did. That the head of the program hadn't been there for a while, and the training was minimal. They didn't even have a manual on their new boats. They didn't know how to operate the equipment properly, and management didn't know they were towing. So
right.
Yeah, interesting.
That's Montreal we're just talking about, not
yeah,
Honolulu.
Montreal.
So,
yeah. Okay. History of this department and water rescue. The department in this incident has a mission statement that says they shall provide for a safer community through prevention, preparedness, and effective emergency response. The department personnel respond to various types of hazardous environments, which include emergencies that occur in the ocean up to 3 miles offshore. The island is surrounded by 277 miles of shoreline, and the department is often dispatched for persons that are missing or require assistance in the ocean. They include surfers, kayakers, boaters, swimmers, and paddleboarders. During the mid-1990s, the department implemented motorized watercraft as an additional resource to be used during search and rescues. The department has 11 of these water rescue craft staged at various fire stations around the island. They talk about equipment and personnel. Units that initially responded to the training event that we're specifically talking about was Engine 7 and Ladder 7. Engine 7 had 4 personnel, including the officer, and Ladder 7, 3 with the officer. The water rescue craft and PPE, they had a 3-passenger water rescue craft, was manufactured in 2014, constructed of fiberglass reinforced plastic, powered by a 4-cylinder 1,800 cubic centimeter, 1,800 cc's, 180 horsepower inboard jet drive with 137 logged on the dash on the display. So this is a big watercraft. It weighed 822 pounds and was 140 inches long. The victim and the operator were both wearing water rescue life jacket or life vest, a helmet, and the operator had a wrist lanyard kill switch that failed to stop the watercraft due to a separation of the lanyard during the incident.
So some of our listeners might not know what that is, but there's a key in the ignition, and basically if you pull the key out,
the engine
it's
stops.
supposed to shut it down. So if you have a treadmill at home, it has a similar thing on it. And, if you fall off the treadmill because, I don't know, you did, it's supposed to stop the treadmill. And this one here is supposed to kill the engine.
Very common on off-road vehicles and stuff, too.
Why is that important? Probably because if you're out on the ocean and you fall off, it could just keep motoring away from you,
Yep.
which might happen in this incident.
The weather at the time and the surf conditions, according to the department, at the time of the incident, the temperature was about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, Denis, 28 or something.
Warm.
Warm. Humidity of 63%. The visibility was clear, 10 miles. The average wind speed was 15 miles per hour from the east, with gusts up to 29 miles per hour. So it was windy. There was a high surf advisory on the day of the incident, with surf conditions of 5 to 8 foot the face of the wave. Faces is a surfing term that describes the front of the wave. The department reported that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration indicated on the day of the incident at 2 p.m. the surf was reported to be 6 to 10 foot faces with winds 23 to 34 miles per hour. So it was getting windier.
So I did some lookup on this because this term faces caught my attention. And apparently it's not measured the same all over the world. In some places, they look at the crest of the wave coming at you and say, that's so high, 20 foot high or whatever. In Hawaii, on the Hawaii scale, they don't do it that way. They measure it from the back of the wave. So from behind. So you're on the flat ocean after the wave's gone by, and you look at the wave going away from you, and you say, well, that's about 10 feet high. However, it's easily twice or three times that height on the breaking side of the wave. So if you've got a wave, in this case, that's 6 to 10 faces high on the backside, that means it's like 20 to 30 feet high on the breaking side. That's a big wave.
Yeah. The department also reported, thanks, Denny, for that, looking that up. That's cool. The department also reported a witness who was surfing at the specific surfing area where the incident took place, reported wave heights of 8 feet with the occasional waves in the 8 to 10 foot high range. On 0830 hours on June 14, 2016, so we're doing it in the month that it occurred, Engine 7, Ladder 7 personnel attended the morning shift meeting to discuss a planned quarterly water rescue craft training that was scheduled to take place from 9:30 to 2 o'clock, 1400. The water rescue craft and attached rescue sled are referred to in the report as WRC or RWC. The captain from the Engine 7 provided the training objectives, which has included specific practical training on launching and recovering the watercraft and surf water operations with the watercraft that included towing the rescue sled with the driver and a passenger and familiarization of the specific watercraft operating areas. The purpose was familiarization was to identify areas where the rescue watercraft could operate, as such as channels in the surf area, the entry and exit zones to get in and out of breaking wave zones, and back and forth to shore areas. The training session goals were to provide recurring training, familiarization with the launch procedures, increased familiarization with the surfing spots that consists of looking for entry and exit points through the surf line, and the hazards. This quarterly training requires a minimum of 10 hours of practical skill training per quarter. And we've seen this before. We did that one in the UK. They were doing water rescue training with the two water rescue boats and ran into each other. It's something that you need to do. You got to practice, right?
Yeah. So if anybody in our audience has ever operated a small boat in heavy surf, you realize that, even though you want to go from here to there, lots of times if you try going from here to there, you're not going to get there. You're going to end up on the bottom of the ocean. So you need to find passages where the waves are not breaking and or excessively high, and you kind of like walking through a whole series of parallel fences, right? So
Right.
you have to walk down until you find a reasonable gap that you can get through, and then you come back and you go with the back and forth thing. So that's what they're doing here. They're not challenging these big waves. They're looking for ways to get around the big waves.
You don't go into them head on. Yep,
Well,
exactly. Because they
once.
just flip you over once. Yeah. For those that don't know, listeners that don't know, Denis and I may have some small boat experience because we both used to sail on small boats, although primarily in a lake. But it would get pretty wavy when we were teenagers. So our dads both had sailboats, and we of course were the crew, right, Denis?
And we survived.
And we survived. Yeah, amazing. The Engine 7 captain notified Battalion Chief the training day of the day for both Engine 7 and Ladder 7, the estimated length of the training and the location of the staging and launch area and the rescue watercraft. The Battalion Chief acknowledged and advised the captain to monitor surf conditions because surf swell was expected to build throughout the day. So the Battalion Chief knew what was going on, so that's good. The site where Engine 7 Ladder 7 staged and launched the watercraft was identified as one of the primary launch sites within that company's district. It provides a launch site protected from large waves and also provides easy access to launch the watercraft through the sand into the water. After Engine 7 arrived, they notified the local lifeguard at the stand that they would be conducting training that day. There's a note here from NIOSH says the lifeguard service is a professional career municipal service providing lifeguard service in many but not all beach areas for swimmers. And the lifeguard service also has a rescue watercraft of their own. While waiting for Ladder 7 to arrive at the launch site, Engine 7 personnel performed a risk assessment and reported wave heights in the immediate area at 2 to 4 feet. The department reported that the increased wave heights that day provided an opportunity for personnel to observe surf breaks that are not apparent until the larger wave heights are present. Ladder 7 arrived at the launch site, and the training began with launching of the rescue watercraft and 2 personnel. 2 firefighters volunteered for the first training mission, one from Ladder 7 as the operator and one from Ladder 7 as a swimmer. They launched the rescue watercraft, motored out from shore approximately 200 light yards. The operator conducted a radio check with command, the captain on the engine, and command answered loud and clear and told the watercraft to check in every 15 minutes. The watercraft with the operator seated on the ski and with the swimmer riding prone on the sled headed into a northerly direction parallel to shore, approximately 1,000 meters to the training area. After traveling to the training area where the surf break was occurring, they entered the area and started to operate in the heavy surf. This area was approximately 188 meters offshore in a surf zone. Where did the meters come from all of a sudden? The rescue watercraft crested over a couple of large waves, and then after cresting on one of the waves, the operator noticed that the swimmer had fallen off. This is the likely point where the swimmer struck his head on the rear of the watercraft and sustained a blunt force injury to the head and neck. The operator turned the watercraft around and motored over towards the swimmer and discovered him face down floating in the surf water. The operator jumped off the watercraft, got the swimmer's head out of the water, and placed him back aboard the sled. The operator boarded the rescue water sled and headed towards shore. The rescue watercraft operator called over the radio, advised that he had an injured firefighter and that he was able to place a swimmer on the sled and he was heading in. Command called the rescue watercraft back on the radio, trying to identify their location. They did not receive a radio response. There's a note here from NIOSH that the portable radio that the watercraft operator was using was sealed in a waterproof plastic back. However, the earpiece modification had been added so the user could hear the radio in the noisy operating conditions of the sled running and the waves and the wind. Fire Department Safety Office discovered during post-incident inspection that the earpiece wire had severed and the plastic seal modification had failed. Water had penetrated and came in contact with the portable radio.
So there's a couple points in there. So one of them was the swimmer got impacted on the sled, so did some damage to his head and neck and fell off, and they found him floating face down in the water. So they're wearing PFDs, right? But these PFDs are not what you would be expected to wear if you were a passenger on a ferry or something else like that. So those types of Coast Guard approved PFDs are designed to float you in a vertical orientation and to hold your head upwards and out of the water so you don't drown. So a standard PFD, a rescue PFD, does not have that type of provision to it. It's really designed for someone who's conscious and can keep their own face out of the water. So you might wonder why he was floating face down. It's because the PFD did not orient him in a different way. And the other thing is they're depending on portable radios that essentially were not waterproof. They had to put them inside a plastic pack or bag, if you will. And that's how they were operating, and with accessories that were not designed to operate in a marine environment either. So probably when they started buying this equipment, stuff that they really needed wasn't available, and it just was never an issue until it was.
Yeah, could be like obviously a rigorous program and training and equipment and stuff, but some of those small details are the ones that fall through the cracks, like the right radio or the right, they should have a bone mic really.
Yeah.
think for that, so
Yeah.
you could hear and talk.
Yeah.
But
Or the
yeah,
radios, or the radio is part of the RWC and has a major speaker on it. It's all
right.
waterproof. It's marine, whatever.
Mm.
So this is the Swiss cheese model of risk,
Yep,
right,
the
Paul?
holes lined up.
So
Yep,
it's never one thing. It's always a chain of things that leads to an incident. And so
for
you're
sure.
starting to see some of the things that led to this incident. You're starting
Yep,
to see them revealed here.
and we're advertising it to you so you can watch out for these little details.
Yeah, something to do some research on your own. Like we all, almost every fire department I've been in does water rescue of one sort or another, whether it's shore based where you're just throwing, or shore based where you're going, or boat based or something. And there's always a radio involved. And how often do you think about how important the continuing function of that radio is,
I'll,
and whether the radio is actually appropriate if there's an oopsie?
I'll
And
get
an
on my
oopsie, yeah,
I'll
a
get
big
on my
oopsie.
I'll get on my soapbox here. I do this in almost every course I teach. If you have a critical piece of equipment, apparatus, such as a boat or an aerial ladder or something you only have one of at the call you're at, if you put the boat in the water, you should always call another boat. You want a second. It's a boat. They're not reliable. Come on, outboard motor guys, fix them
You f-
all the time. You hit
maybe you forgot.
something,
Maybe you forgot to put the drain in the boat and left it
who
open.
yeah, been there, done that. So it's a boat. It's going in the water, and if it's your only boat, you better have a plan to rescue them. It's common sense. It's like confined space entry. You're putting your firefighters into a confined space, you have to have a rescue plan. Well, if you put your the ocean can be an ideal H atmosphere, right? Yes, you can breathe it, but you have to be able to swim and you have to be able to get back to shore. So, river, anytime I put our boat on the river, I used to tell all my officers, call for another boat. It might not be there yet, but at least it's on the way. And they would look at me sideways like, oh, really? We've never done that. Says, why not? What if the boat breaks down? What if you hit a rock? What if you get lost? Who knows?
It's just a trivial incident.
Same thing as
Is
a
it?
ladder truck. If you put your ladder truck up in anger because you need to get to the roof, or you need to rescue some people, or you need to flow a master stream or something, call another ladder truck. It's the only one you got, and the next one might be half hour away or an hour. And it's my soapbox for these kind of things. The rescue craft should not have been out there alone.
Yeah. Those are really good points, Paul. You should have brought them up prior to this one, this podcast.
Oh well, I have. Maybe not in the podcast. I don't know.
Yes, you have.
99 episodes.
Yeah. So not to make fun of what Paul's doing, but essentially, if there's going to be a failure and it's mission critical, you should plan for that failure.
Right.
It's predictable. It's like a lot of these things you could predict that this happened. The fact that they didn't suggests that either they didn't think it was critical or they didn't envision this happening.
The big enemy in the fire service, complacency.
Yeah, you got to have imagination. You got to think
Yeah,
about things that
I've
can
been
go
watching
wrong.
the NTSB reports on this, the jet in Louisville where the bearing failed and the bulkhead broke and the engine flew off, and there was 10 other instances of similar failures and they didn't act on it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But keep in mind, these guys go out and they train year
all the
round.
time. Yeah,
They do
every month,
rescues.
every quarter.
I doubt very much this is the first time the mic wire has broken.
Yeah, probably.
But this is the first time it broke at the very wrong time. Anyway, approximately halfway to shore, the victim, the guy driving the RWC turned around, went back, picked up the victim, put him back on the rescue sled,
Got back on the sled.
and then went back on the sled and went to take him to shore. So I don't know if there was a procedure or facility for securing the victim to the sled, but halfway back to shore. Now, keep in mind, we're not talking straight into shore. It's left and right and around the breakers and finding a place where the water is slack and going through there. Anyways, halfway back, the victim fell off again. And then the operator jumped off the RWC and swam over to him for the second time. And the RWC operator was able to keep the now unconscious victim's head out of the water. He was probably unconscious before if he was floating face down. Anyways, however, when he jumped off, the kill switch lanyard on the watercraft broke. And when he jumped off, the engine did not shut down. And the RWC continued to motor off into the distance with no one on it. So he's in the water with an unconscious buddy of his, firefighter, and there's nothing nearby. The sled and the RWC are gone. He's just there by himself in the heavy surf. So, but back at the launch site, Engine 7 was making multiple attempts to contact the RWC operator, and he was having no success. So one of the E7 members walked over to the lifeguard stand and notified the lifeguard that they had an injured firefighter on the RWC, so they knew that much, and were requesting the lifeguard service to send their lifeguard RWC, Paul's second boat, out to help. One of the radio transmissions from the fire department's RWC noted Suicide's Surf Break, which is a known site for surfing. So it's called Suicide's, probably significant surf in that area.
Not a good thing, yeah.
Right. And then personnel from Ladder 7 heard this broken transmission and headed to the site by land. Drove the truck, in other words, or walked. I'm not sure which. They don't say. Anyway, the RWC operator managed to keep the victim's head above water and began to do in-water resuscitation. Have you ever done that in practice? Wow, that's difficult. You can do rescue breathing, but you're not doing CPR.
No. These guys they know their trade.
They do. So, you're not maintaining spinal alignment. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're bobbing around in the ocean doing rescue breathing. Very, very difficult.
I've tried. I can't even climb back on a jet ski. If I'm in the water, I really struggle to get back on the jet ski without tipping it over.
Right. Of course, you could get on the sled and then from the sled, get on the jet ski
with a victim.
Anyway, yeah. So these events took place in deep water and more than 200 meters from shore. So a fair distance. So that's like 800 feet off the beach, 600, 700 feet off the beach. So the operator could not stand up on the ocean floor to gain an advantage for lifting or positioning the swimmer to do rescue breathing and CPR. Additionally, the remote mic from the operator's portable radio had stopped working, and his whistle was not on the end of the safety lanyard on his wrist where it was supposed to be. So he didn't have a whistle either. So you got two heads bobbing in the surf. What could anybody else see? Where were they? So the operator now had, of course, very little ability to signal distress. I mean, he could wave his arm if he saw somebody, but he couldn't do that for long because he's supporting the victim. An off-duty firefighter happened to be surfing nearby, noticed the empty RWC motoring along without a rider, and saw a firefighter's yellow rescue helmet in the surf in the water, some distance away. He surfed a wave because he was surfing, paddled over to the rescue watercraft, boarded it, and then drove it back to where the two firefighters were in the white water. So the white water is that term, where you describe where the wash of very turbulent water. So it's breaking and it's all turbulent and going back out again. Anyway, so the wave had crashed and then there was the next wave hitting after that and so forth. So really in a bad spot. And since the kill switch key was still connected to the switch, the engine was still running, so he was able to operate the RWC.
If you look in the photos in the report, which we'll post on our social media, where they were located, the bottom of the ground there underwater, there was a valley, and there was two crests, and then like a river in the soil underneath underwater, and that's why they had a lot of which is why it's called surfer suicide. Is a lot of violent water right there because all of a sudden there's a hole, so the waves are coming up and they're rising because of the ground underneath, and then they fall into that hole, and which is why it's a nasty spot.
Yeah. So Swiss cheese again, Paul.
There you go.
Heavy surf hits his head, radio goes out, loses the RWC, lands in the worst place on the beach.
Yep.
It just doesn't get better, in fact. So anyway, the RWC operator and the off-duty firefighter eventually got the victim onto the sled, and all three firefighters made their way to shore. They then got to the beach and began proper CPR. The lifeguard rescue service then arrived on the beach. They would have probably a vehicle, Paul, and assisted with resuscitation. So Engine 7 and Ladder 7 firefighters drove to their location, not obviously directly on the beach, but close by, and then also assisted with resuscitation efforts. Ladder 7's automated external defibrillator, AED in other words, was placed on the victim, but got multiple no shock advised reports. So that's not good. So then they implemented full C-spine protocols. And the victim was moved from the beach to a wall, a retaining wall along the shore, with CPR continuing throughout this advance. Then an ALS rescue unit, advanced life support for those who don't know, arrived on the scene, and the victim was transported to the hospital. He was successfully resuscitated on the way to the hospital. Kudos for those guys.
Yep.
Where he was admitted. However, he died 2 days later, probably from the consequences of having, neck injury and lack of oxygen. So
Yeah, could be.
brain injury. There was. You'll find out a little bit later on, but he was in a bad way.
The no shock.
This is a multi-year athlete. This
guy had won all kinds of triathlons and stuff like that. He was in
huge experience,
extremely good shape and very experienced. Yeah, it was a tragic incident, sort of just unbelievable. The no shock advice usually means that your heart is in asystole and that there's no activity to try to shock and get it back going into a normal rhythm. Yep. So anyway, contributing factors for this, according to the report, occupational injuries and fatalities are often a result of one or more contributing factors or key events in a larger sequence of events, which Denis just said, the Swiss cheese model, well known in the safety circles, the result of the injury or fatality. The investigators identified the following items as key contributing factors to this incident that leading to the fatality. The firefighter was riding prone on the sled while cresting a large wave. So he couldn't really see what was going on because he's prone, he's face down or on his belly.
Well, plus, have you ever played Crack the Whip?
No, I must have missed that one.
That's where you do it on skates, right? And a little movement up front is a lot of movement at the tail. So even though the RWC going over a crest, the operator can stand up and shock with his legs. We drive motorcycles, Paul. We know what that's like.
Yeah.
Usually the passenger on the back of the motorcycle gets the whiplash.
Yeah, they can't do anything.
Yep. Right. And in this case, the guy on the sled is getting the whiplash.
Yep. The high-risk surf conditions, which they were training for. So, I can understand that, but you need to be careful. It's training. Accountability and communications, the water rescue crew operating in surf while out of visual contact with shore-based personnel. Water rescue crew operating alone in a dangerous high-risk surf condition. Failed safety kill switch lanyard, and they didn't list the radio in here, but definitely it was a factor as well. According to the chief medical examiner's report, Clifford Rigsby, the firefighter acting as a swimmer, died from blunt force injury to the head and neck with cervical vertebrae fractures and spinal cord injuries. Blood gases for carbon monoxide were unremarkable at 2%. They were just checking that to make sure it wasn't exhaust from the boat or anything like that.
Yeah. But it also tells you that their CPR protocols were pretty good. They were getting circulation, getting oxygenated.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. So recommendations on this one, fire departments and organizations who operate rescue watercraft should consider having the swimmer ride seated or versus kneeling or prone on the rescue sled, just so that their heads are up and they can maybe be aware of the impact before something happens. Discussion about this was riding on the rescue sled had many disadvantages for the swimmer. The main disadvantage of the swimmer being thrown forward or forward inverted. The slang term for this being scorpioned, in that the rescue sled they're riding on, the tail of the rescue sled rises way up on the wave you just went over, and then you almost impact the watercraft, which is what happened here. The passenger riding prone cannot see the conditions that the operator sitting on the rescue watercraft can see and therefore cannot brace for impact as the watercraft crests a wave. This poses risk for being thrown forward and striking the rear of the rescue watercraft as occurred in this incident. Most rescue watercraft can easily carry both the operator and one or two passengers while towing the rescue sled to the scene. Once on the scene, the swimmer can get off the watercraft and ride on the sled to secure a victim to the sled until a safe area out of the surf zone in deeper water or the shore is reached. Additional benefit for the swimmer not riding on the rescue sled out to the scene is a reduction in exposure time to exhaust fumes from the watercraft. In 2006, exposure to carbon monoxide from personal watercraft contributed to the drowning death of a firefighter during surf rescue training. We're going to have to look that one up, Denis.
2006, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so in this incident, the watercraft was in heavy surf zone and the operator crested a wave. After cresting over the top, rescue craft and the rescue sled maneuvered in such a way that the victim was thrown forward and struck his head on the rear of the watercraft, breaking his neck and falling off into the water.
So this must happen relatively frequently. This getting tossed around on the back. They even had a term for it.
Yeah,
So
scorpioned.
but I guess I don't know. I guess I never realized that in fact this could be a fatal injury.
Well, if you watch a scorpion, right, they flip their tail up
Yeah,
towards their head.
yeah,
Exactly what would happen here on that sled. It would go forward and up.
yeah. Yeah, you get inverted, and anyway, I'm sure it's a lot of fun to do, but not when it goes wrong.
But again, that's similar to the Montreal drowning incident where they tried to pull the other boat backwards, and then they went forwards and they turned at the same time, and the rib, the boat that, or not even a rib, it was a full hull boat, turned, and then the tail got caught in current and then flipped the boat upside down. So the same kind of thing. It was a maneuvering experience issue that caused the fatality.
So recommendation 2, fire departments should ensure that the incident commander, incident safety officer, or lead instructor conducts a risk versus gain analysis prior to committing to operations involving a high surf condition. We see this a lot, risk versus gain, understanding the risks, understanding how to, lessen them if you can. Anyway, discussion: high surf rescue using water rescue craft is a high risk, low frequency event for most organizations. I'm not sure that it's that low for these guys. They're involved in it, but regardless, they're doing training to keep their certifications up. So the term high surf is a relative term and has different meanings among surfers on the east and west coasts of the US, and certainly may have a different meaning in Hawaii. There are other factors that add to the dangers of water rescue beyond just the wave height, like we just talked about this underground river and the bottom conditions. That can affect that also. And all of these factors have to be considered when sizing up a water rescue event, whether for a training or for an actual rescue response. The difference is that in a training event, there is a discretionary time available to make a decision based on the high risk, low frequency analysis. It's not go, go, go. We don't have to go out there and get somebody. We can sit there and think about, well, what if this, what if that, what if we do this differently? Be aware of that. So that's a possibility. But however, in an emergency incident, there is little or no discretionary time for decision making. But I will say that awareness and good practices will lead to safer real rescues. And you
So it's
practice those and you learn those in training.
right out of
Anyway,
a right out of a Gordon Graham training video. High risk, low frequency. The difference is it's training, so you have time.
yeah. And you learn skills. There are many fire departments across the country that have special operations groups for water rescue and for scuba rescue too, scuba diving. There are very few departments globally that perform surf rescue with water rescue craft on the size and scale required for the locality of this incident. This is a world-renowned site, right, for
Mhm.
surfing. So if a fire department decides at the strategic level to accept the risk or share the risk of doing water rescue, there has to be a total commitment to provide the resources and the training and continued program support. If this commitment level changes due to financial or other reasons, a strategic level risk analysis should be repeated. Um,
Radios, microphones, kill
yeah,
switches, the
yeah.
little things.
This paragraph is so extraordinarily important. This is you, you can't be a little bit of a firefighter or you can't be a little bit of a water rescue person. You're either all in or you're not. And if you're not all in, the chances are you're going to get hurt because you're going to try and do something that you
This is
can't do.
it's exactly
And
the same stuff that happened in the UK and in Montreal.
it's exactly the same stuff that happened in Port Colborne 40 years ago, where they were unprepared to do a surf rescue on Lake Erie, and 2 or 3 people drowned, including a firefighter. They weren't prepared, they weren't trained, they weren't ready, they weren't supported. It'll get you in trouble. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually it's going to bite you and it's going to be bad. So if you're going to do this, basically what this paragraph says is if you've decided strategically we're doing water rescue, then do it as best as you can. That's essentially what they're saying. So anyway, at the strategic and tactical level, the incident commander must perform a risk analysis to determine what hazards were present, what the risks to personnel are, how the risks can be eliminated or reduced, and the benefit to be gained. In this particular situation, they knew the area, but on this particular day, they were in an increasing severity of surf day. The wind was rising, the surf was progressively getting better, and they knew this because that was forecasted. The difference between an emergency incident and a training incident should be factored into the risk analysis. The incident commander or lead instructor should consider all of the factors in a training event. Using the discretionary time available for the case of the training event gives the IC or that lead instructor an advantage that can add to firefighter safety. So just recapitulating what we've already said.
Well, and we see this like I used to do lots of vehicle extrication training. And for years, we would use the participants as the victim in the car. So you could feel, you could hear, you could see what it was like. And then about 15 years ago or 20 years ago, we said, you know what? This isn't a good practice. If something goes wrong in training, we're going to hurt our firefighters. And so we started putting the rescue dummies in the car instead, you know. And so this is exactly what happened here. They had a firefighter playing the victim on the sled, ended up being injured. They maybe shouldn't have played the victim until they had to go pick them up and grab them back. And the other thing you could have done to resolve some of the risk on this training evolution would have another watercraft out there, because it's a high risk. The waves are increasing. Let's make sure we take two units so we can rescue somebody if something goes wrong. Those are the two things that, you know, bug me
And
about this.
your other watercraft can watch the operation of the one that's training and say, you shouldn't do that because of this, or
Right.
I saw that you went over the wave and you immediately accelerated, which
Mm.
caused
The sled to
the
hit the
sled
front or something.
to come forward and bang into
Yeah.
or whatever, or caused the guy on the sled to come sliding forward. Like you should be accelerating off the crest at the last minute. Whatever the case may be.
So
I'm just speculating.
if they would have bought one of those wonderful Ruth Lee floating rescue dummies from the UK and hauled that out there on the sled and dumped it off and then went back and rescued it, it would have been the same effect without an injury.
Maybe.
And these are another Swiss cheese, right? Use a dummy instead of a person.
Yeah. So some of us who are listening may not know what the Swiss cheese model is, and basically what it is you've got a stack of cheese slices, and each slice has a hole in it, and that hole represents a failure. And when you look at the big stack of cheese, all you see is a stack of cheese. It's all cheese, but you can move those slices around so the holes line up. And when the holes line up, that's a multiple cause total failure. So the chances of them lining up, yeah, they may not. You may only pass through a couple holes and you hit a solid piece of cheese. Nothing happens. Nobody gets hurt. And nobody thinks anything more of it. They just go, yeah, okay, the radio broke, so what? Or the lanyard broke, so what? But when they all line up and somebody gets seriously injured, that's when the holes lined up. So that's what the Swiss cheese model is.
All right, we're soapboxing this one, but that's why we're here. We want everybody's got to learn. Hopefully you find it informative. Recommendation 3. Fire department should consider sending 2 rescue watercraft that operate in pairs in high-risk surf conditions and always during training. Because the rescue craft can just run out of gas or break down. Who knows? I sold fire trucks for 25 years. I'd never operate my whole fire on one fire truck. They're just too technically sensitive. Anyway, fire departments and other agencies that provide water rescue services should consider sending 2 watercraft assets that can operate in pairs in high-risk conditions. This is the discussion. These agencies should always have 2 rescue watercraft assets in training evolutions. The risks to the rescuers is similar in both training and actual rescue events. However, the incident commander and training officer always have the time on their side in a training evolution. This time can be used to wait for a thorough risk-benefit assessment of the conditions, the assets, the staffing, consideration of personnel capabilities, experience, knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs as they're known, to be gained from the training evolution. The water rescue safety officer should also ensure that a minimum of 2 water rescue craft are operational. As to the area of surf rescue operations are frequently not accessible to other land-based assets or rescue boats. They can't go in there. Only the watercrafts work really well for this. Rescue watercraft used in surf rescue require highly trained and skilled operators as well as swimmers that can accompany them. The rescue watercraft are likely the only craft that can assist one another in a dangerous surf zone. Personnel riding on these crafts may not be able to communicate if they get knocked over or off the craft. The second watercraft can only assist the first craft, but also be able to communicate the situation to command. Essentially, this second watercraft can assist the first craft on the rescue or be a waterborne rapid intervention team. The safety officer should also help identify other possible rescue intervention team assets, such as pre-staging additional watercraft and air assets from their or other agencies.
So this changes everything from we're just going down to the beach to get the hours in to get our recertification into a full-blown training exercise that's done properly. So different attitude when you go out the door that morning.
Yep. Which is the same thing that happened in the one in Wales. They said, "Oh, we got to do training." I think it was actually ad hoc because something else happened that day and they couldn't do what they planned. So they on the fly said, "Well, let's take the 2 boats out." And the one boat they hadn't trained on forever, and there was nobody in charge, and there was no plan, and they just winged it. And then one boat ran into the other, and it ended up resulting in a fatality. Based on the size and complexity of an incident, incident command should delegate responsibilities that include safety for the technical discipline being performed, and also assign a safety officer for the incident scene, the same as at an emergency. The incident command system can be expanded to include functions necessary to effectively command and control an incident. Although the incident commander is still responsible ultimately for the safety and welfare of all members and first responders on scene, this responsibility is delegated to the incident safety officer. Upon confirmation, the water rescue safety officer should obtain the following information: meet with command and the command staff, the water rescue team leader, and discuss the needs and advise on the risk versus benefit analysis at the strategic level and the tactical level. I used to do ice water rescue training. We always had a team standing by for the team that we're practicing. Anyway, does the benefit of the operation justify the risks to personnel to achieve it? The overall situation status, resource status, capabilities, strategy and incident plan or the rescue plan for the incident, known hazards or concerns, in this case, weather, surf height, degree of difficulty, water, environmental complications. The battalion chief knew. He warned them. He says, beware, the surf conditions are going to get more extreme as the day goes on. Although this was early in the day. This was their first run, right? Status of water rescue crews, crew leaders, crew capabilities, competencies, air assets in case they could call somebody, equipment, and personnel accountability. Ensuring water rescue crews are following the plan and accurate event monitoring and recording are taking place. Backup water rescue asset teams. ALS standby for medical care for rescuers, just in case something happens. Establishment of a rehabilitation group. Confirmation of established radio communications. Water safety officers should don personal protective equipment appropriate for potential hazards that they will be exposed to. It's like an auto-inflating or standard PFD or a float coat for colder weather. Also, the water rescue safety officer should be identified by a vest or helmet so you know who's the safety officer. Water rescue safety officer should meet with the technical rescue group leader, the incident safety officer, the incident commander, and develop a communications plan to coordinate their activities. The ISO incident safety officer is responsible for all overall safety of the incident scene and reports to the IC. The water rescue safety officer reports to the technical group rescue group leader. However, coordination and communications between safety officers can be advantage on large complex missions. I know the Coast Guard and the BC Ferries and stuff, they do large rescue mission practices all the time. The water safety officer has a different area of responsibility than an incident safety officer. He has a specific knowledge, skills, qualification, experience to oversee the safety of the members of the technical rescue group and the mission they are performing. Experience in technical rescue being performed is extremely valuable resource. They must have that level of experience to recognize realistic mission goals and team capabilities, the team member capabilities and the team member limitations, and have the discipline and authority authority to add, change, modify, intervene, or stop any unsafe operations. And there's some more and more data coming out that not just anybody should be a safety officer. They really should have safety officer training and experience and stuff like that. This is especially important in technical rescue, high surf training operations, so that the incident safety officer working together with a trained, experienced water rescue safety officer can provide the fire department with a higher level of expertise to perform the necessary incident scene functions and assist the incident commander with incident scene safety. So a little bit of a soapbox there, but it's very important.
Yeah. So to summarize all of that, you should run your training events like they were real incidents, with one difference, the difference being take a little more time to analyze the risks.
Yep, basically.
And with one big benefit, you learn how to do it properly. So if you're in a real incident and it's not being run as well as the training incident, you start to feel uncomfortable and realize what's missing and try to fix that.
Yep. Train for success, right? Not mistakes.
Yeah. So recommendation 4, special operations water rescue teams should have a safety officer on scene who is trained in the discipline before commencing water rescue operations. NFPA 1670, which is the standard on operations and training for technical search and rescue incidents. And this is references to chapter 4.5.2. So this is from 2016. So there's at least one, if not two versions of updates since that. So that reference may have changed, but that reference says the wording likely is the same. At technical search and rescue training exercises and in actual operations, the incident commander shall assign a safety officer with the specific knowledge and responsibility for the identification, evaluation, and where possible, correction of hazardous conditions and unsafe practices. So this is not news to, or shouldn't be news to any of us.
Recommendation number 5, fire department should ensure that a stationary command post is established and effectively communicate with the team members on training as well as actual special operations incidents. Fire department should train their command officers to establish a stationary command post and effectively communicate with the team members on training incidents as well as special operations such as water rescue. Conditions that create high-risk events are present in training evolutions also. It's easy for some command officers to effectively command a rescue event from a mobile position on foot away from the command post when everything's going well. The critical communications occur or significant events occur, it is possible to miss those communications with all of the incident and environmental noise, and confusion can occur. So, anybody can stand on the front lawn and command the operation. But when things go bad, you're not in the ideal environment to command it anymore. You've got perspective, but your comms are compromised, your information is compromised, that kind of stuff. So,
and you're easily distracted.
Yeah.
You've got spectators, you've got other personnel who do not need to talk to you directly. There's lots of reasons where you can get distracted away. And in fact, I think it was the last incident where maybe podcast before that, where the incident commander got distracted by the fire chief coming up to the command car and having a conversation about, which was relatively trivial stuff, and missed major communication. What communication did he miss? He missed a mayday.
Yeah. Well, and I did that when I had a department manager or whatever, like my boss's boss, come up to me at an incident, and I'm in the command truck getting a debriefing from my current incident commander because I was taken over, and this guy walks up to me and starts talking. And actually, luckily, I was in the car, so I upped the window, closed the window, locked the door, and I continued my debriefing. I did get let go about 6 months after that, but poop runs downhill. So anyway. Yeah, it's just you need that controlled environment, especially when something goes wrong. It's very important. The recommendation 6.
So recommendation number 6, fire departments should ensure that safety kill switch lanyards and other critical components of RWCs exposed to salt water are replaced, repaired in accordance with preventative maintenance programs. As that Paul mentioned earlier, this applies equally to off-road vehicles. So if you're running side-by-sides or other small vehicles where the operator might be expected to get out or fall out or be thrown out or whatever the case may be, you should have these safety lanyards on. So anyway, discussion-wise, many RWCs are equipped with a safety lanyard. I would say all, but never mind. Many that either kills the engine or at least throttles the watercraft to neutral. Throttles changes the transmission to neutral, so that if the operator fell off, he or she could swim back and reboard without the watercraft having driving away. If you ever tried to swim after a boat that's sailing away from you, it's going a lot faster than you think it is.
Yeah.
and you're not Michael Spitz.
leave a line in the water to trail behind you all the time, so you can grab on, so your boat doesn't leave you. That was one they always did that when we were sailing.
Yeah. Anyway, this watercraft did have a wrist-mounted safety lanyard. So in other words, the driver had a Velcro strap around his wrist, and there was a rope that went to the key, if you will, or the safety switch. And so if he got off, his wrist went with him, and it took the key with him. So, but in this case, that didn't work because it failed due to hidden corrosion beneath the outside covering. So in other words, it was a plastic coated wire is what it was.
Usually it's a little curly wire.
Yeah, and probably galvanized, not really corrosion proof in a saltwater environment.
Maybe.
And how old was it, right? And who knows, the water's laying in under there. Anyways, so there was corrosion, and the lanyard separated at the corrosion. So in this incident, the second time the RWC driver jumped in, so he jumped in one time, it must have done what it's supposed to do. But the second time he jumped in and fell off the sled, the RWC then motored away from him because the lanyard key stayed in the lock in the ignition, and the wristlet stayed in the operator's wrist, and the two were not joined anymore. So anyway, as part of overall preventive maintenance and safety pre-checks, for instance, critical components exposed to salt water, including but not limited to the safety kill switch and or the wrist lanyard, should be inspected and replaced. So inspected, grab both ends and try to break it. If you can't, you're good. And replace it on an established schedule. So even though it doesn't break, expect it to break. Replace it every year, every couple of years. What do you think that piece of cable will be worth, Paul? 39 cents at the handy Andy? It wouldn't be worth much.
Not much, no. My safety thing for my trailer broke a few years ago, like the extra for the emergency brake. So it's just like you got to have it, right?
Yeah. Anyway, old lanyards and other safety devices that are replaced should be destroyed. You don't want to leave them lying around the fire hall. Some guy walks in and says, geez, I need one of those for mine, and takes it.
Put it on my trailer. Yeah.
Same as old Scott bottles. Cut them up.
Yeah, like that one that blew up.
Anyway, so don't leave them where they can be mistakenly used or placed back in service by somebody looking to replace a worser one with a maybe not so worser one. Is that language? I don't know if that's language.
Yeah, worser one. Recommendation 7, incident commanders should ensure accountability, maintain situational awareness on special operations, water rescue events, and incidents. Discussion. Although there's no evidence here, following recommendation would have prevented the fatality. It is being provided as a reminder of best safety practice for the fire service. All officers and firefighters operating in technical rescues should maintain accountability and situational awareness. The nature of technical rescue demands disciplined accountability and a continuous risk assessment throughout the incident. Fire departments need to ensure and maintain accountability for all responding and operational personnel at the task, tactical, and strategic level. An accountability system, it can be as simple as a team using the buddy system on a single unit minor emergency medical response to formal command accountability function established at technical rescues or large fire responses. A personnel accountability system can help reduce exposure to hazardous areas and potentially hazardous areas. Personnel accountability system is a system that readily identifies both the location and functions of all members at an incident scene. The accountability system should be inclusive of all sizes and types of emergency incidents. And they did have command and stuff, but they couldn't see them. So not necessarily a factor in this one. They knew who was out there and what they were doing, but they didn't know exactly where they were operating.
So that is the definition of loss of accountability right there.
Yep, right there. Yep. We have an article here from Kurt Varone's Fire Log blog in 2017 about this incident. It talks about a lawsuit. The family of the Honolulu firefighter who died last year during a water rescue training exercise has filed suit against the city and county of Honolulu. Clifford Rigsby, 63, was participating in water rescue training June of 2016 on the south shore of Oahu near Diamond Head. At the time, the seas were rough. Rigsby was riding in a sled being towed by a jet ski. We've told you what happened already. Traversing a series of 8-foot waves, the jet ski operator looked back and found Rigsby face down in the water unconscious. He was brought to shore and transported to hospital, but died some 60 hours later on June 16th of 2016. Determined the cause of death to be blunt force injury to the head and neck, cervical vertebrae fractures, and a spinal cord injury. Rigsby's son, Clifford MacArthur Rigsby, filed suit in U.S. District Court Monday. The complaint alleges a federal jurisdiction based on admiralty law principles. It contains 2 counts, negligence and wrongful death. The complainant specifically accuses Honolulu of failing to perform a proper and adequate risk assessment for the area and sea conditions in which the rescue watercraft training and injury occurred, especially given the high surf advisory in effect on the day of this incident and the city's actual notice of prior injuries during water rescue training, which NIOSH didn't talk about at all, about prior injuries, so we don't know. Failing to provide effective supervision, instead of allowing the water rescue training to proceed unsupervised out of the view of the training commander, Captain Park, and failing to identify appropriate training objectives, establish appropriate safety procedures, and instead of allowing the training to proceed in a wave impact zone or while traversing waves or swells, despite the fact that the wave heights were large and expected to build throughout the day, there was a $5.25 million settlement and the lawsuit was dropped.
So if the lawsuit had continued, there could have been a much bigger settlement.
Right, especially what we're seeing these days.
Yeah. So, or award, I should say. So settlement just means that both parties were relatively satisfied, and the city figures they got off light, and the plaintiff figures they got enough to make it their point. So,
following an investigation, the Hawaii Occupational Health and Safety Division, NIOSH, cited the Honolulu Fire Department and fined the department $15,400. Citations were issued for failing to evaluate and control workplace hazards during the exercise, including neglecting the high surf advisory, failing to ensure safety devices such as a corroded wrist landward were sound, and the officer not having a clear view of the surf where the training took place. Because if they would have seen it all from the shore, they would have right away maybe called get the lifeguard to get their rescue watercraft out there and respond, but they didn't see it. They didn't know. All they heard was one radio transmission. Yeah. Thank you for joining us for another Line of Duty incident review and discussion. We hope that you continue to find these interesting and insightful.
Another tragic death, preventable probably. So most of the safety recommendations, may not have prevented him from being killed by his injuries, but might have prevented him from being in a situation where he got the injuries. So that's the important thing to remember here. Seeing the accident from shore might not have saved Rigsby, but might have seen that he was at risk and might have changed the trajectory of the training incident. It's hard to say. Anyway, it's sad to report on these things, but again, hope there's some lessons there for you folks.
Absolutely.
Really good lessons if you fail to plan your training properly. Chances are people are going to be hurt. Chances are you will be sued. And need to learn these lessons.
Thank you, everybody. Hopefully you found it insightful. You can follow us on our social media feeds. And please, let's be safe out there.